What's going on, guys? This is the Red Rogue, and today we're going to be talking about Outlaw in its current state on the Shadowlands beta. I've had quite a few comments about this topic and have given some insight here and there, but decided to sit down and really look at how the spec feels and interacts with the numerous changes made to its toolkit. So strap in, Shiba Squad, because we're going to break down everything that has been done to my favorite rapier-wielding, pistol-shooting pirate spec of Sneaky Boy, Outlaw Rogue. As you can probably tell, Outlaw has been my go-to spec since Legion Beta, and I've clocked in a lot of time in the last couple expansions with my dice in one hand and a sword in the other. So let's first go over what has been added to the spec that did not previously exist in any iteration. Oh, and this discussion will cover Outlaw without any inclusion of Covenants, Soulbinds, Conduits, or Legendaries, mainly since the first two directly affect the experience of the character, and the fact that we still don't have any Conduits or Legendaries for rogues on the beta. Come on, Blizzard. Literally, if you look up Shadowlands beta on YouTube, Rogue is the first spec that shows up. Heck, it's like the fourth thing that shows up in the search engine. You know people want it, just put it out already. Oh, and I nearly forgot. If you end up liking this video, then maybe stick around and check out some of my other stuff. I put up new videos every weekday and cover a wide variety of both beta and live content. Okay, shameless plug over. So, for new additions to Outlaw, we have a pretty short list. Kidney Shot is in our toolkit as a combo point spending stun. It is on a 20-second cooldown and is not affected by cooldown reduction from True Bearing or Restless Blades. Poisons have finally come to Outlaw spec, and this gives us access to instant poison, crippling poison, and numbing poison. Due to this, we also got back Shiv as a PvE move, and this in turn gives us access to both a 70% on-demand slow when using crippling poison and a dispel enrage effect when using numbing poison. Evasion has replaced riposte, giving us a 100% dodge ability for 10 seconds on a 2-minute cooldown. To me, these are all welcome additions to our toolkit. While Kidney Shot is not a ranged stun, unfortunately, it does make it very deliberate when I want to stun something, unlike Between the Eyes, which is an integral part of our DPS rotation, and this can often bite you in the butt in a lot of scenarios, such as over-applying stuns, which causes diminishing returns, as well as those times you accidentally stun an ad in a Sanguine Puddle. Not that I've had that happen before, but just saying. In regards to poisons, I was hoping we'd get Deadly Poison so we'd have a minor damage over time effect, but I am happy to have both Crippling and Numbing Poison back. The ability to dispel enrage effects will be massive for Mythic Plus, so an increase in utility is always nice to see. The extra slow of Crippling Poison will be a nice addition for the times you may need to kite something for a bit, or if your tank needs to drop some stacks of Necrotic or something like being slow BDK. And honestly, I never liked Riposte much anyways, and preferred Evasion, as 100% dodge is much better than 100% parry, as dodge also affects ranged moves and parry does not. That and, oh, in PvP, if you're disarmed, then parry won't work anyways because you kinda need a weapon to parry. So I'm confused as to why Blizzard made Riposte sound like it was better than Evasion. I mean, it does a minimal amount of damage once per second, I guess? Ah well, good riddance, I like Evasion more. Okay, so now for the big list. Abilities that have changed. Grappling Hook's base cooldown is 45 seconds, down from 1 minute. Retractable Hook now drops this by another 15 seconds and increases the speed of which the hook yanks you. Slice and Dice is now a baseline finishing move and gives 50% attack speed. For a reason I'll explain in a bit, Slice and Dice is not affected by the pandemic refresh system we are used to seeing extend our buffs, and it also no longer gives energy regen like it currently does in BFA. Between the Eyes is no longer a stun. It is instead a finisher that will cause your target to take 20% more damage from your critical hits and have a 20% increased chance to be critically hit by you. It is also now on a 45-second cooldown. Pistol Shot's slow effect is now 30% down from 50%. Crimson Vial's health recovery is now 20% of maximum health, down from 30%. Killing Spree is target capped at 4 nearby targets while Blade Flurry is active. And now for the really important ones before we break down all this information. Roll the Bones is now a 45-second cooldown that costs 50 energy to use and gives you the Roll the Bones buffs for 30 seconds. This cooldown recovery is now affected by True Bearing and Restless Blades. This is still affected by the pandemic refresh system that it currently works on, The Grand Melee buff from Roll the Bones now increases Slice and Dice's duration by 2 seconds per combo point spent while active, and gives 15% leech. And Blade Flurry no longer uses charges, but costs 15 energy to activate and is on a 30-second cooldown. It does an AoE hit to up to 5 nearby targets when activated, and then allows you to strike up to 4 enemies for 40% of your normal damage for 12 seconds. This is also affected by both True Bearing and Restless Blades. Alright, that is a lot of information to let sink in, so we're going to go over how this affects the spec and how these changes feel currently in beta, at least to me. We'll do these in the same order I listed them. The baseline reduction to Grappling Hook's cooldown is a welcome change, as any improved mobility is a good thing. However, I don't feel that Retractable Hook is ever going to take the spotlight away from Acrobatic Strikes, unless there are some major changes to our toolkit that haven't been implemented yet, or potentially any Legendaries or Conduits that might affect this. I'll take the free 15-second cooldown reduction though, so that's a win. Slice and Dice was basically a meme throughout all of Battle for Azeroth, and was virtually never used other than for the Snake Eyes dagger build that existed for like a month or two in the beginning, I forget. Having it as a baseline bonus to the spec is nice, as with us being the only slow one-handed weapon rogue spec, this will somewhat smooth out our rotation with more combat potency procs, and the increase in raw auto attack damage and instant poison procs should help normalize our damage to some degree too. So honestly, not a bad change at all. It is really annoying and kinda weird that Slice and Dice doesn't have Pandemic Refresh though, as you basically have to use Slice and Dice as soon as it's about to fall off every time instead of getting any extra time out of it with a refresh. The new version of Between the Eyes is overall a good thing, I would say. However, it does take away from our toolkit while also adding to it, so I'm kinda mixed on this one. I do like the fact that it allows us to apply a nice burst window debuff to enemies and will basically help fill in the void that will be left behind when Blood of the Enemy no longer works. It will also be nice to not accidentally stun a mob in a pile of sanguine or something annoying by accident, however losing the range stun does kinda hurt too. The problem is that Between the Eyes is a major part of our DPS rotation, so having a stun go off over and over and over will cause diminishing returns eventually, which can be a bit of an issue on fortified weeks. It is also going to make target swapping much more frustrating than it kinda needs to be, as you'll want to maximize every second of the crit debuff that you can for optimal damage. Since it's affected by both True Bearing and Restless Blades, it does hold a reasonably good uptime though from how it feels so far, and that's at a very low item level with basically no haste and without any legendaries or other effects buffing my character at all. Pistol shot slow being reduced doesn't surprise me with us gaining both Crippling Poison and Shiv, and honestly I'm okay with the slight decrease. This again will make it much easier to control how much you want something to be slowed by, and that's a net gain in my opinion for our toolkit. Crimson Vial's nerf really doesn't surprise me at this point, especially after seeing how much they took away from Havoc Demon Hunters so far. 20% is still a pretty reasonable self-heal, and you could bump it up to 28% if you take the Iron Stomach talent. This would also benefit your health potions and health stones, but I'm pretty stubborn on only using cheat death, so I'll just deal with the decreased effectiveness. It just means you have to avoid getting hit, you baddies. And Killing Spree. Oh, Killing Spree, the times we had. Honestly, this talent really hasn't been relevant in a long time and would take some major buff/overhaul to make it more useful than Dancing Steel or Blade Rush. The target capping is just to make sure almost all melee moves are limited so you don't have people pulling a quarter of the dungeon and blowing it all up, so I'm not mad, I'm just disappointed. And now for the real stuff. Roll the bones. I'm not a fan of this new version, to be honest, guys. Having seen the highs and lows of the ability, I like knowing I have some chance of getting the buff I'm interested in at the moment, so losing that is not conducive to strategic gameplay in my opinion. I understand why they did it. They want people to not feel like they have to keep rolling over and over and over until the boss is already dead and you still only had buried treasure up, and yes, those times can happen and are annoying. However, I choose for them to be annoying if you get what I'm saying. The cooldown is pretty lengthy, but if you dump a lot of combo points, it is possible to get some pandemic refreshes out of it, and the more gear we get, the easier that will be to do. They also changed Grand Melee when I wasn't looking apparently, and I'm really not liking that either. The old version gave a lot more survivability, which is something that they seem to be relying on Covenants to help fill the gaps of, sort of, as basically every Covenant has some defense bonus or healing bonuses included in them. So I get that they don't want certain classes to be tankier than they should be, but then again, they also let Warlocks run around in arenas being beefier than Death Knights, so I guess that doesn't say much. And Blade Flurry. Oh, Blade Flurry. Nothing is sacred anymore. The target capping sucks, but again, it's part of the schema they have going for Shadowlands in what I'm guessing are hopes to even out the class representation in Mythic Plus so you don't just bring a billion rogues or demon hunters or whatever to just blow up all the trash. Which is fine, I want there to be more than just meta comps running keys and asking you for a specific spec just to do them. But man, it just doesn't feel the same when you can kill 3 guys at the same time as when you were killing 12. The cooldown factor really isn't that big, since you can get enough combo points out to have Blade Flurry back and ready before it's falling off depending on what you roll, so it actually could allow for more sustained AoE, which is a plus. And a buff to the damage is perfectly fine by me too, which helps regulate the potential damage lost with what you'd be able to do on a normal-sized trash pack. In regards to performance, I can't say yet exactly how much damage Outlaw is doing in the grand scheme of things, as we still don't have any working damage meters. However, the spec does involve a little more planning than it used to, what with the damage burst windows from between the eyes and the new version of Blade Flurry, so it does feel a bit more strategic / meaningful when you line your moves up right. The spec suffers ever so slightly from energy as of now, at least when I'm playing, but that doesn't surprise me with how little haste gear I have. Literally, they give you like 6% haste worth of gear to start with, and you're really low item level too, so it doesn't surprise me that much at all. I'm pretty confident it plays better than it did at the beginning of BFA, but going into Battle for Azeroth, I was absurdly geared from Mythic and Taurus, so it's kinda hard to judge exactly how it felt in comparison. Overall, I'm excited for when Conduits and Legendaries and all that good stuff is finally put into the beta, because even without them, Outlaw still feels pretty good overall, and if anything, because of the more strategic gameplay, it feels a little better. I still am not a big fan of being told I can't roll as much as I want to, but that might just be a me thing, I guess, I don't know. I hope you guys liked the video. I wanted to cover more, but this is already way longer than I planned on it being. So I'll be doing a supplemental video on this once I play through all the Covenants and get my hands dirty with those, and once they put in all of the Conduits and Legendaries and all that good stuff. I genuinely appreciate you all taking the time to check out the channel, as it really does mean a lot to me. Thank you all so much for watching. This is the Red Rogue, and I'll see you guys around.